everybody. Okay, I probably isn't going to sound as good as I expected it, but this is the first of the Anthem videos, I guess. Dun 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 dun. So I've got some basic thoughts, some builds that I really like, and some clips. This is a really long video. I couldn't include everything, but what I wanted to do was take you through the Interceptor builds that I've got going that I really enjoy. So I've got 3 different Interceptor builds currently. And I really like how much there is to use in the game. I'll get to that later, but first off we're going to take a look at the customization and the level of detail on the javelins themselves, and then we're going to go into the build and all that kind of good stuff, and we're going to talk about all the nitty-gritty that is in this game, all that jazz. So I really like the customization in this game. I really like the level of detail that's on the javelins. I like how you can do pretty much anything the way that you want for the most part, and this is just the demo. So I know that there's going to be a lot more materials, a lot more patterns, a lot more vinyls, a lot more other things like aesthetics and custom pieces and things that you can add to your javelin. And I'm really excited about that. I really love customization in games like this, and this has a very good customization engine. I really like it. So let's talk about this build in particular. You might notice that in the top right it says Wave the Blade. I wonder if that's an indicator of what this whole build is trying to do. Yeah, that's right, it's a melee class. So what I have here are 2 different inscriptions. I can't wait until I unlock the rest of those, but one of them is a shield reinforcement inscription, and the other one is a blade inscription. The blade inscription increases my melee damage by a certain degree. Can't really read what's on the screen because it's in small print, but I think it's like 10% or something like that with that particular one. And then there's some other stats and figures. But then I also have another inscription called a shield one, and that gives me an extra buff to my shields while I'm in the thick of it. For my weapons here, I've got kind of a pretty versatile loadout. I've got a light machine gun, which I've found that are in this game are very efficient, very good weapons. And then I have the Devastator, which is pretty much the most powerful gun in the game currently in the demo. For my loadout, I'm going to be using a target beacon. If you use the target beacon and the Devastator, you can get ridiculous damage numbers, and it's just really good for your team support. And then in the technical slot or whatever, I have a Tempest Strike. Really like the feel of Tempest Strike. It's really fun. It's a good combo mechanism. It doesn't set up a combo. It's not a primer, but it is definitely a detonator. And I do really like it, so I'm going to be using Cryoglaive with this to set up the combo. It's a little finicky, but it is a very nice, methodical build, and it is very aggressive. I really like this. The extra shield gives it some extra staying power. And then the extra damage from the melee. It just feels really good. And I love the way it looks. I love the paint and all that kind of stuff. We can talk about that later. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're getting on to the next one really quick. As soon as this ticks over here, don't worry about it. You can continue to look at it. I'm just trying to buy time, audio-wise, until it switches over to the next thing. There it goes. Okay. So this is my next one. It's called Pistol Whipped. Is because my name is Just Whip, but it's Pistol Whipped. I don't know if you're going to understand what this one's all about, but it's pretty much about the machine pistol. I think that's a little indicative of what it's supposed to be. It's really, really strong. This one is probably one of my more aggressive builds. The previous one, Way of the Blade, is a really nice technical build in that you set up combos, you pop off with your combos, you retreat back, and then you chip damage in, then you set up another combo, and then you pop off again. It's very rhythmic. This one is not rhythmic. This one is full tilt aggression, all in one package. So I got really lucky, I guess. But this is like the really cool thing about the inscription system, or with the components, is that you can get multiple components that do similar things, and then you can stack effects, which is really nice. So on this one, I have 2 machine pistol ammo components. 2 machine pistol ammo components, but what they both do is they boost machine pistol damage by 10% each. So that means that I get a 20% increase to machine pistols, and then I also have some other added benefits here and there too. So machine pistols have a really fast rate of fire, a ridiculous fast rate of fire. And any damage buff that you can put on something with a rate of fire that is that fast will create something that will shred. And that's basically what this does. So I'm pairing that with the Devastator. I have the Devastator in the main loadout, and then a really fast firing machine pistol, and then I'm using cluster mines. So cluster mines for close range, for the proximity, are really cool because you can like flip in and then drop your cluster mines while you're flipping and your animation and things like that. So it's really effective, really aggressive, and then it puts damage down that helps deal with shields. You can shred your shields, set up combos, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm using acid spray or venom spray just because I love it. And that is the combo enabler with this class. So venom spray shreds the shields. The machine pistol, which I'm looking at in the background, that also shreds shields. And then I have the cluster bombs to do added damage, and then I'm also using a targeting adjuster to support my team so that they can do extra damage. And then I also have the Devastator so that I can do long range damage. And in this current demo and environment, having something like the Devastator and the target adjuster is just really efficient. So this is probably my most aggressive build going on so far. It's got 2 doubled down components on one weapon archetype that also synergize with perks. Those both grant me armor, they both grant me shields, they both grant me health, so on and so forth, and then they grant bonus damage to my weapon archetype. I love how detailed you can get into this. But it's just a really fast and aggressive build. I've got the Venom Spray to rip off the shields of the enemies, and then I can go into combat mode and then start meleeing, proc the combo from the Venom, and then start dropping mines places, and then shred, run and gun. This is really aggressive in the close range, and then it also has backup for DPS with the Devastator and then the target adjuster. So this is probably one of my better builds, I think, in terms of just well-rounded and application goes. Like this one, I use this one a lot, and it's really, really, really good. I like it a lot. But this next one coming up is turning into something that is also kind of a bit of a favorite. If I had to pick a favorite of the 3, I wouldn't have one because Way of the Blade is very technical, it's rhythmic, it feels nice, and when it pops off really nicely. The Pistol Whipped is really aggressive, well-rounded, does a bunch of DPS. You can be very aggressive with it and do whatever you want with it, and it's very flexible. This next one is really interesting. So I really like this one, mainly because I think my video froze on my end. Okay, so I can't see what's going on in the background because on my display it froze. But if it's recording and still showing that it's moving, then good for you guys. So I can't really see it. But the point of this build, despite it looking gorgeous, I love the color schemes on this particular javelin. I love the way that these colors mix together. This one is basically about dealing death. So the cool thing about this is that its combo mechanism is self-sufficient. It's kind of like the Venom Spray. It has a self-sufficient combo mechanism that grants you an aura, and that is a perk or benefit of using something like the Interceptor as a javelin. Is it generates an aura when it combos, and that creates a elemental field around you that does stuff, essentially. So that while you have your aura, when you continue to damage enemies, you can apply the aura, the elemental aura, to the enemies that you're attacking. But this one in particular is just your enemies explode in an elemental death. It has no descript elemental, it's just they die, and then they explode, and it's more death. And that's what I like about it. So that is what I'm doing with this one. I doubled down as much as I could on the melee damage, and then also tried to maintain some resiliency as well. And then all the weapons that I picked had some type of health percent drop, because that's one of the things that you really want to have when you're doing melee stuff, or that I've found that I really like having, is having weapons that have health drop, having other things that have health drop so that I can stay in the thick of it and stay in the thick of it for longer. And I think that that seems pretty decent. I'd love to see what else there is in the the overall grand scope of the game. But in the current demo, that's what I found what works best with this class in particular, because it's so aggressive and so in your face and so constantly doing something and constantly moving, and it's very weak as well. So that's the other thing, is that you have to be constantly moving, constantly damaging your enemies. That's like the synergy between this class and its abilities, is that you have to constantly be putting damage out on the field so that you can access its combo, and then also access its power, and then also access its resources. Like, you need to pick up your resources so that you continue the fight. You need to continue the fight so you can pick up your resources. So you're constantly on the move. And I love it. It's so good. It's so engaging. I love how fast and agile the movement is. I just love this class in particular. It's so good. It's so good. I haven't been able to play any of the others except for the Ranger, and I do like the Ranger. The Ranger is actually a really good class. It's got a couple of really good abilities. It's not as mobile as this one, but it's not as weak either. This one, it takes a while for it to put out its DPS. It takes a while for it to ramp out its DPS. The Ranger is a little bit more efficient on DPS, especially when it starts to get set up. You can put out some huge numbers on the Ranger, and the Interceptor is not really about that. The Interceptor is all about movement and applied pressure. It's like the praying mantis. It's just whipping around and dealing death. It's so good. It's such a good class. And it feels so different than the other one. Okay, if you're experiencing a delay in the audio, or not a delay in the audio, but you got a cutout in the audio, and all of a sudden it showed me shooting something on the screen, well, that happened to everybody because my clips didn't really load. So the ones that I did all the, like, talking about, like, all this stuff, like the builds and all that kind of stuff, that was fine. But my other stuff just didn't load. I'm on an old Xbox. Not an Xbox One, not anything fancy, not an Xbox S, like an old, big, thick Xbox. And I'm actually really amazed that this game is running so well just on a basic Xbox, because I was really considering upgrading to a new one. But this is actually running very smooth. I'm not really having too many performance issues. Yeah, it's still the demo and all that kind of stuff, and there's some bugs, but it's actually running pretty good. So I wasn't able to really show off the builds as I wanted to. This is the final build that I was talking about, the Death Dealer, front lines, whatever it is. Yeah, so I think that it's very interesting to take a game, because I'm coming from the Destiny world where the builds are very limited, and I also played like Diablo and other games like this, looter shooters, whatever you want to call them, and I really like this one. I tried to get into Warframe, but that one was like, it just didn't really click with me. However, this game I think is fairly intuitive. I think it has a nice feel to its loot system. It makes sense. It's clear. It has clear numbers. It has clear applications. It has clear designations for roles. It has clear classes. It has interesting classes. It has very dynamic movement. It has good use of space. It has good customization. So far, I have to say, I don't really have anything bad to say about this game. I don't have any particular issue with the controls because it's on controller, and I think that this game is optimized more for controller than anything else. And I think that since this is a demo, I can't really say anything about its performance because it's a demo, and I know that those issues that are issues will be worked out, but otherwise I have nothing but positive things to say. So, hope you like the video.